Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City of Haslet's Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. The date is Tuesday, September 28th, 2021. The time is 6:30 p.m. This meeting is being held in person by a quorum of the P&Z members. There is also additional P&Z members who are joining via teleconference, and the community has been invited to join with us here in the room in a limited capacity as well as by teleconference. So if at any point during the meeting this evening, if anybody would like to participate in the public hearing, if we've reached the capacity in the room, we will have those who have spoken step out of the room and invite additional community members into the Haslet Community Center to offer their comments if they choose to do so in person. If you're joining by teleconference, we ask that you please keep your telephone or your computer muted at all times unless you've been called on to speak. That'll help us make sure that we can hear those people that are speaking and reduce the number of distractions and disruptions that we have through the course of this evening. So at this time, we're going to do a roll call attendance to make sure we know who is also joining from the Planning and Zoning Commission via teleconference. So, are we able to mute somebody if we identify them as being a disruptive? Okay. Okay, thank you. So by roll call, Mr. Hilborn, are you present? Mr. Hilborn? Yes. Mr. Hilborn, you're on mute. Are you present? Mr. Hilborn, could you confirm your attendance this evening, please? I can see him, but he's not responding, so I'm going to not recognize that he's in attendance until he responds. Mr. Markison?
I'm here.
Thank you. And present in the room, we have Ms. Snedeker, Mr. Wallach, and Mr. Kaddish, so we do have a quorum present. Moving on, we got a couple items of community interest this evening. First item is the National Night Out. That's taking place on Tuesday, October 5th from 6 to 8 p.m. And there's activities that are occurring in the, it's taking place in the Haslet Community Park. So if you're looking for something to do, maybe see a petting zoo or community awareness activities or fireworks, that might be a good place to go on Tuesday, October 5th. And then on October 16th, there's the Haslet Hustle taking place. So if you want to get out and get active, that's a great way to do that and be part of your community activities. You can find out more information on the website that's set up for the Haslet Hustle, and you can do a quick search for that on the internet. Moving on, agenda item 3, consider for approval the Planning and Zoning Commission regular minutes from our August 31st, 2021 meeting.
I'd like to make a motion we accept the minutes as written.
There's a motion made to accept the minutes as written.
Greg, this is Jim. It records me as being present. I was absent for that meeting.
Okay. So we are you capturing those notes, or will we take that from the audio? Okay. So the minutes need to be reflected or amended to show that Jim was not in attendance on the August 31st meeting. Are there any? Okay. So there was a motion made.
I'll second.
Okay, with the amendment?
Yeah. Right.
Okay. All in favor? And then I'm going to roll call your response. Mr. Markison, are you in favor or oppose?
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't there.
Okay, abstain. Mr. Hilborn? Okay, motion passes with the present quorum. Moving on, Agenda item 4A, hold a public hearing, discuss and consider a recommendation regarding a final plat of LeTara Phase II being 119.788 acres situated on the Coleman Boyd Survey abstract number 225, Tarrant County, Texas. We're going to begin with our staff presentation. So who from the staff will be presenting this evening?
Okay, this is Morris Schwanke. I'm with the staff of, and this is a plat that's been submitted and it's been reviewed for a few weeks. And it contains 177 single-family lots. There are still a few engineering questions that are being worked out. And so if this is approved tonight, we recommend that you approve it, subject to complying with the engineer's final comments as they are worked out with the developer.
And can you speak specifically about those things that are still being worked on?
Let me just go over to this letter. There's an engineering letter that's should be attached to your packet.
Okay, is the engineer present this evening?
Mr. Kaddish, this is Mike Anderson, Belchef and Associates. I'd be happy to walk you folks through the letter if you'd like.
Yes, please.
Okay, as Morris stated, this is a final plat review letter for Phase 2, which is the last phase of the LeTara project, containing approximately 119 acres, proposing to create 177 single-family residential lots and 9 open space lots. The construction plans, we've gone back and forth on about 1 or 2 rounds of comments with the developer's engineer. I actually got some final feedback to them this morning and said that their plans are basically ready to proceed. There's some minor notes and some minor revisions in those plans. All in all, the on-site construction plans look great. We just need to get those back from the developer's engineer, and they should be ready to move forward with their project. In reviewing this project, we did get into the development agreement and I believe there's three amendments that were done to the agreement, and there were some off-site infrastructure improvements that we noted that had not been taken care of. Most notably, the funding of some pump station improvements at your FM 156 South pump station. We got a boatload of documents Thursday and Friday of last week. We're in the process of digesting and processing that information, trying to determine what needs to be done to the existing facility, and compare that to the developer's requirements under the terms of the existing developers' agreements and subsequent amendments. We don't have all that worked out at this point. However, we felt like the on-site improvements and the final plat were generally in conformance with the agreement and the preliminary plat. We recommend approval of the plat, subject to the following conditions, which would be funding of the FM 156 pump station improvements, funding of the off-site Nanch property trail pending easement acquisition of the city, referencing the necessary recording information for the off-site supporting easements, and then final conformance of their construction plans subject to our review and approval, which, like I said, should be forthcoming, I would say this week or next week at the latest. And then we need to make sure that the funding and completion of the elevated storage tank is also done. I know that tank the bowl got hoisted, I'm sure as everybody noticed, over the last couple of weeks. So that it appears to be wrapping up completion. We want to make sure that all gets tidied up and accepted by the city. And then we had one other item to note to verify the funding of the Avondale Haslet Road improvements. I believe that's been done. We just need to confirm that with the appropriate city staff. So that would be our recommendation, would be approvals subject to the recommendations contained in our letter dated September 23rd. I am available for any questions. If any of the commission members have any questions for myself or Mr. Schwenke, we'll do our best to answer those for you at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Is the applicant present this evening?
Yes, this is Clint Baker with the development group.
Is there any additional information you'd like to share at this time?
No, we've actually reviewed most of this with Mr. Anderson for the past couple of weeks. Probably the 2 biggest items are the pump station, which we will be funding our portion of it. Basically, that tower that is constructed won't work properly without those, and we know that, and that's been detailed in the development agreement and all the subsequent amendments. I think where we left it with the previous city engineer and Neil Schaefer, which is the city's inspection group is trying to work out the timing of our improvements versus, I know the city wants to upsize the station. So I think that just needs to be discussed once Mike has a chance to review all that documentation. There's quite a bit of it. But the summary is we're funding that at the appropriate time. The tower itself is basically 90% build. So that'll be done. All water line connections are wrapping up. So we'll be able to get that inspected soon. And on the other items, we're wrapping up the minor comments on the construction plans. And basically don't take any issue with any of the conditions to approval.
Okay, any additional comments you want to share at this time?
That's it on my end. I'm happy to answer any questions about any of these conditions or the development itself.
Okay, thank you very much. So at this time, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak for or against agenda item 4A? And if you're joining by teleconference, if you would like to speak, please enter your name in the chat field and we'll be able to see that you want to speak. And we'll call on you by name. And can you, Mr. Tucker, can you monitor the chat?
I apologize really quick. We were trying to use the chat, but it's disabled right now, so we can't enter our names.
Is this Ms. Holt?
Yes, it is. I have something further down the road, but I was going to ask what to do. The chat is disabled, so we cannot enter our names to say that we'd like to speak.
Okay, so you're not wishing to speak now. You're just bringing that to our attention.
Yes, we cannot. No one online can actually enter the chat, their names in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you for bringing that to our awareness. And it should be available now. Okay, again, I'll ask, is anyone wishing to speak for or against agenda item 4A? Okay, recognizing no one came forward in the room nor entered their name in the chat field, we'll close the public hearing and we'll move to discussion. So are there any questions for the city staff or the applicant?
I do. This is Paul. So the pump station, Mike, and Clint, that's the water pump station down there on 156? That's the water plant?
Yes, sir. The pump station there on the hill, basically off of 156. That's the station that needs to be improved. But hydraulically, that's the one that's going to work best as far as keeping the elevated tank that's going into service full and functioning. And so what we've been asked to do by the city is basically take a look at the recommended improvements as outlined in the city's master plan and compare the recommended improvements for the city and figure out a way to incorporate the necessary LeTara improvements and basically figure out how we can provide an interim solution at that facility. Ultimately, that pump station will need to push about 10 million gallons a day, and currently it's set up for less than 1. And so ultimately that's going to be the main city pump station. So we can't go from 0 to 100. So we're trying to figure out an interim plan that works best for everybody. And we just need a little bit more time to do that so we can figure out some costs and then figure out a reasonable cost split for those improvements. So that's kind of where we're at this point.
So there's no design, so we have no idea what this is going to cost. But Clint Baker, I assume you're on board with the fact that you're obligated for a portion of the cost of this plant without knowing what it's going to cost yet.
Unfortunately, yes, but at a high level, we know where the station sits today. We did a long, lengthy preliminary design, and then obviously the final design, knowing what those pumps need to be upsized for LeTara itself. And then I think what Mike is talking about is the city has obviously an ultimate build out, which is beyond the scope of LeTara, especially with all the other neighborhoods. And so I think that's what they're figuring out. And to your point, yes, we'll be funding our piece of it. And I would imagine some of the other neighborhoods will be contributing to that as well. So yes, slightly open-ended right now, but certainly has been expected since this was struck back in 17.
All right. I mean, Mike and I both know that's a significant change to that pump station. You're going from a
Sure.
million gallon to 10 million.
Yes, sir. And I think what we're trying to do is we understand that based on their agreement, they're basically locked into some pumping improvements. And so what we're currently trying to do is figure out what can we get done in the existing building, interior piping, site piping. What can we get done as an interim solution? You know, that station's going to look a lot different for ultimate needs, but you know, we're not there yet. The city has some money in their budget this year for a ground storage tank at that location as well. And so we've been asked to evaluate, you know, what the project can look like, and then we have to work it backwards and figure out what their proportionate share is based on their agreement and the studies that have been done up to this point. So I think the goal, based on our discussion with the Public Works Mayor and City Administrator last week on this item, was basically let's get it to a point to where we can have a working meeting with Clint and Al and those folks. Should be able to have that meeting next week. I had a guy in my office take a deep dive into that over the last couple days, so I'll be getting back into that later this week, and hopefully we can sit down and flesh everything out next week. The goal was to have this sorted before this item goes to council in a few weeks, depending obviously on what happens this evening.
Will the existing pump station service that elevated tank? Does it have enough head pressure on it to do that?
Yeah, the new elevated tank was designed at the same overflow elevation as the existing Harmon tank. That's 950 mean sea level as an overflow elevation. The challenge at this point is the flow rate. You know, the pumps in there that are currently in there are rated at I think 250. There's two at 250 and one at 500. And so we're trying to figure out what's necessary to provide for LeTara and the development occurring over there, and then see what we can do with the existing electrical and site piping, et cetera. Because you know that station was set up to be expanded at some point in the future, and I think we're at that point. So it's just trying to find that balance between the ultimate and what these folks need. So you definitely don't want to get in there and do something and then have to go in there and in a few years change it all up. So we're trying to find that balance without creating a project that nobody can afford at this point.
Okay, I would have a lot more questions, but I don't think it's necessary. All right, thanks.
Are there any other questions for the city staff or the applicant?
I don't think we touched on the off-site trail to the Nance property. That's pending city acquisition of that land.
Yes, sir. There's a condition of the development agreement that in lieu of funding sidewalks along the Avondale Haslet roadway project, the developer agreed to build I believe it was a 6-foot wide trail connecting their development to the community park. That condition was obviously subject to easement acquisition that was put in the hands of the city. The city did reach out to the property owner, and it's my understanding that the property owner wanted to hold off on that easement dedication until such time as they were no longer running cattle on the property. I think the intent of the easement or the location of the easements generally following the sewer line, sewer easement through their property, but the property owner was not, I'm told, was not too interested in having public access to that property while they had cattle and ranching ongoing out there. And so it's my understanding that that's just kind of been a postponed deal until those folks decide that they're no longer interested in running cattle on the property. So we wanted to just bring it to everybody's attention. It's in the agreement. There's no real expiration on the commitment. So we just felt like it was important to bring that to everybody's attention, and just kind of see where that shakes out as we move forward.
Mike, for Mr. Anderson, for clarification, the 6 conditions that you have in the engineer's letter, those are the conditions that should be included in a motion. Is that correct, as you see it?
Yes, sir. And I think those were summarized by Mr. Swanky in the cover memo there as well. So, yeah, those would be the 6 recommended conditions of approval, if you're so inclined.
Oh, you didn't hear me. Did Mike Anderson, did you hear the question? Where'd Mike go? Who's muted?
Okay. I did not hear your question, Mr. Wallach. I heard Mike Anderson. That was it.
All right, I said the funding of the sidewalk through the Nance property, is that going to be upfront funding so the city has those funds when the easement situation is resolved, or is they expect that the developer will fund that sometime in the future?
You know, the agreement doesn't state that. I think that was going to be one of our discussion points with the applicant at our working meeting when we sit down and talk about the pump station. And you know, I think I don't know that if we make it a condition of approval, and my understanding is that there's no time frame in the agreement, so it would just be something that they would have to take care of at some point. They might be interested in putting those funds in some sort of escrow at this time to lock in based on a cost estimate. You know, that might behoove them. I'll be honest, I haven't reached out to Clint and his team on that. But I think we might, what do you think, Clint? Have you guys kicked that around at all, or not thought about it, or what's your leanings on that, you think?
No, so the piece itself originated back in 2017, prior to the Haslet Parkway plan. And we were talking with the Parks and Rec group, and the connection to the trail and Haslet Park was an important piece. And so we offered to fund that piece on the Nance property because there's a trail that it would connect to within our floodplain in LeTara that we will be building with this phase. Obviously, with that being in 2017, that easement has not been acquired from the Nance property, which is fine. There's been a lot going on in that corridor. So we would be open to, putting it in escrow just so we don't forget about it. But otherwise, we're open to funding it, as soon as it's ready, and certainly connected to what will be in our phase 2.
How long is the project?
I think
the length of it.
If you asked about the distance, I think it's about 2,400 feet from the termination of our trail to Haslet Park.
So, Mr. Anderson, or maybe Mr. Quinn, I'm not sure who might be the best person to answer the question. So, if should we amend the recommendation on point number 2 to say that escrow funding is what is desired there if we wanted to have that escrowed?
Mr. Chairman,
I think that'd be appropriate.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Hall.
as mayor, I'll answer that question. It's not the commission's role to settle funding issues at this point. So I would just follow the engineer's lead with regard that the trail is still subject to finalization and not try to come to some funding agreement here at PNC. Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion, we recommend that the LeTara Phase II final plat be conditionally approved with the 6 items noted in Mr. Blanchett and Associates letter dated September 23rd, 2000.
Could you read those 6 items just for the record?
Item number 1 is the funding of 156 pump station improvements. Item 2 is funding of off-site Nance property trails pending easement acquisition by city. Number 3 is referencing of recording information of off-site support easements. Number 4 is confirmed final plat subject to the city engineer approval. Number 5 is funding and completion of the elevated storage tank. Number 6 is verification of funding of Avondale Haslet Road improvement.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been seconded. All in favor? The 3 members present were all in favor. Mr. Markison
Yes.
and Mr. Hilborn.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being in attendance this evening. Next agenda item 4B, hold a public hearing, discuss, consider an act regarding a zoning change request from R2 and NC to R2 pursuant to section 2.5.1 of chapter 14 of the zoning ordinance to residential R2 zoning on lots described as lots 1, 2, 30, and 31, block 1 in the Belgrande Estates in the city of Haslet, Texas, more commonly known as 1302 and 1304 State Highway 156. And we'll begin with our staff and engineering presentation.
Chairman and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, this request before you contains 3.36 acres, and it's located along FM 156 and future Belgrande Road. And it's on the west side of 156. What's being proposed is there's some NC zoning, which is a commercial zone on a part of this tract, and they wish to eliminate that commercial zoning and make the entire subdivision, the entire Belgrande Road, as a residential development. And when doing such, the 2 lots that are on the corners are currently 1 acre in size, and they'll eventually bring forth a plat that will divide those acre lots into 20,000 plus square footage lots, which would meet the R2 zoning classification. And when the plat is submitted on this, they will have to request a variance to Section D, Appendix D of the Fire Code, which basically says if any subdivision has a cul-de-sac of more than 30 lots, all the houses have to be sprinkled within that area, or an alternate escape route or street placed in there. In talking with the fire department, the fire marshal, and the fire chief, and also the city staff, we thought that a variance would be appropriate when the plat comes forth on this to allow up to 32 lots. And a part of the reasoning is the commercial lots that currently would dump out onto the Belgrande Road would create more impact and 2 more residential lots than would be allowed. Having said that, the staff is in support of this request, the zoning from R2 and NC to R2.
Okay, thank you very much. Does the engineers have anything additional to add at this time? Mr. Anderson?
Not at this point. We'll get into the replat, as Mr. Swanky alluded to, and take a look at it. But just our understanding of what's out there and what's being proposed, I don't anticipate there being any issues from the engineering perspective.
Okay, is the applicant present this evening? I'll ask again, is the applicant present this evening? Okay, since the applicant did not identify themselves for the meeting this evening, we'll move to public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak for or against agenda item 4B? And again, if you'd like to be recognized as a speaker, please enter your name in the chat field and we'll call on you at that time. Have you seen any names appear? I recognize anyone step forward in the community center or put their name in the chat field as requested. We'll close the public hearing and move to discussion. Are there any questions for the city staff? If there are no questions, is there a motion?
This is Jim. I'll make a motion here. Recommend a motion be made that the property leading into Bell Grande Estates, since it is in keeping with the comprehensive plan, approval of the zoning change request of 3.36 acres of land from R2 and NC to R2 only.
Mr. Marcuson, are you for or against?
For.
And Mr. Hilborn? Mr. Hilborn, are you for or against?
Greg, this is Jim. You've been cutting out.
Mr. Hilborn, are you for or against agenda item 4B?
For.
Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on, agenda item 4C, hold a public hearing, discuss, consider an...
Chairman Kadesh,
Yes, ma'am.
who seconded that motion, please?
That would be me, Doreen Snedeker.
Thank you.
Okay, moving forward, agenda item 4C, hold a public hearing, discuss, consider an act regarding a request for a zoning change from planned development residential to planned development residential with modifications pursuant to section 2.5.1 of chapter 14 of the zoning ordinance to be a residential neighborhood described as the Vines subdivision within the city of Haslet, Texas, more commonly known as property along Verona Drive. We'll begin with our staff presentation.
Yeah, Chairman and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, this is a request to change the zoning on 63.559 acres, which originally was a zoning request a few years back called Wriggle Ridge. And but when the plat was done, the name was changed to the Vines. This land is located south of Blue Mound Road. And like I said, it was originally done as Wriggle Ridge, and almost 95% of the original ordinance is staying intact. There are 4 different areas that the current owner / home builder would like to change. The first item they'd like to change is the Masonry Standards, so that they're modified so that not only can you stone, brick, and stucco, but you can use a cementatious board siding mixed in with the brick or stone. And once again, no EFS is going to be allowed. The second requested change is the adjacency of buildings. In other words, if you have a building that's been requested to be permitted, all the other buildings around there, the 6 across the street and the adjacent ones, not only do they have to have different floor plans, they also have to have different elevations. It's just a little bit of a change than the prior ordinance. And then the third change is to change the primary pitch to allow 6 to 12 instead of 8 to 12. And then the fourth, it adds a different type of a garage system. The builder / developer wants to have a requirement that 3-car garages are what you're going to see out there. And with the primary garage doors will be on the side, but there may be secondary garage doors, facing the front. But if they do face the front, they'll have to be set 15 foot back from the face of the structure. So nothing will be right up on the front. Within the ordinance themselves, they actually changed the front elevations that you can look at.
Could you pause for just 1 second? Mr. Tucker, could you scroll the screen so that we can see the latter part of his comments? Or this, we'll be looking at page, I guess it'd be 2 of 3 in the city staff for agenda item 4C. Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, just if you would scroll down to the next page. Yeah, thank you. Right there.
Okay.
Please continue.
And okay, and as you can see on the item number 4, that the what's crossed out on these items are what's being deleted, and the ones that are underlined are the requested changes. So as you can see on number 4, there's going to be a minimum of 3 enclosed garage spaces per residence, which is a change. It used to be 2, and the primary garage shall be side entry, but their secondaries can be in the front as long as they're set back 15 foot from the front elevation. And once again, this is a request to go from a plan development to a plan development, but just with some slight revisions. The streets are in place, so there's no streeting difference, no platting lot differences. It's just some of the standards within the plan development.
Okay. Any additional comments at this time?
No, sir.
Thank you. Is the applicant present this evening?
Hi, this is Kurt DeBose with Pentavia Custom Homes. I am present.
Is there any additional comments you would like to offer at this time regarding your request?
No, I just appreciate this opportunity within Haslet. We're excited about this community. Our average price points in there are ranging anywhere from 800 up to 1.1 million. We're excited about bringing something to Haslet that's very special. It's our goal to make sure that we keep standards high and to make sure that it's a beautiful community and that the Vines, quite frankly, is something that you're very proud of.
Okay, thank you for being present. At this time, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak for or against agenda item 4C? Yes, sir. And again, for those who do come forward or put your name in the chat field, when you're recognized, please state your name and address.
I'm Gary Halsey, 2003, FM 156 South, Haslet, Texas, 76052, and I'm also the mayor of Texas. I've spoke extensively with Kurt DeBose, the developer of the Vines, on these changes, and they are very attractive. You'll be very well pleased. I highly recommend the approval of the request.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak for or against agenda item 4C?
Mr. Chairman, this is Pat Ritchie. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Ritchie, please, go ahead.
The chat's not, it's been disabled on your end. I'm sorry, but anyway, I agree with Mayor Halsey. And I live next door to the Vines, so I am full support of these changes.
Thank you, Mr. Ritchie. Is there anyone else wishing to speak for or against? Okay, recognizing that no one else came forward, we'll close the public hearing and we'll open it up for discussion.
Yeah, this is Paul Wallach, and I would like to ask the builder developer, why are you asking for the change? What brought this about?
Back when the zoning was done originally for the Vines, or it was then called Riggle Ridge, architecture was quite frankly, had a different footprint. And today's architecture and what the market is looking for is a little bit different. Back in the day, they would do 8 and 12 pitches. And the reason why they did that was because it gave the opportunity to get some more height to the house. But the original issue there was that they only had an 8-foot total tall exterior wall, meaning they had to slope up within the attic spaces of the roof. We're doing something completely different. We're going up taller. All of our ceilings will start at 10 feet and then they go up even higher. So it gives more masonry standards to the outside of the house, and it allows us to get to a various look that most people are really enjoying. A lot of the homes that we have designed are coming from some of the standards that we have done in other municipalities around the area here. And we've really taken notice to what people are looking for in the architecture. Architecture is something that's very important to us. It's very distinctive. And I feel like that there's a timeless nature to the architecture itself. And so that's why we're asking for the request. I will also say this, that in terms of the garage, the primary garages are going to be side facing. We have very large lots, and we want to utilize all the width of the lot as much as possible. With the primary garages being on the side, it's good to have a secondary, only one single garage that's pushed way further back off of the front face of the house and the front curb of the house. And that helps us too with secondary drivers. When we have new drivers that are coming in and living in the homes and so forth, the swing angled entry is something, as we all know, is something they need to get used to. And I even quite frankly have a lot of moms saying that they wish that they could just pull straight in. We didn't like having a front-facing garage that was up towards the front of the house. We wanted to, if we were going to have that, we wanted to push it back. So these were just some of the small changes that we were looking for in the architecture. We felt like that they were tasteful and they were eloquent, and we just wanted to make sure that that they were compliant.
This is Greg Caddis, Chairman. I got a couple of questions, and I think what you're suggesting here, I think it makes a lot of sense. But I do have some, I guess maybe what might be clarifying points in all of this. So the garage, as you say, the primary would be side facing. Are you defining the side or the primary garage as the 2-bay garage? I would like to just make sure I understand you're defining the primary as the 2-bay, so that we don't end up finding the 2-bay garage being the one that's street facing, and you call in the single-bay garage the primary.
Yes, you're correct. The primary would be the 2-bay garage. It would be the more substantial garage.
And are you okay if we have a motion that says that needs to reflect that the primary is the 2-bay garage?
Completely, absolutely.
Okay, the next question, or maybe area that I'd like to talk about, is the floor plan and the elevation changes that were done here. So, the elevation, the floor plan really just says what's happening inside the space of the property. You move a kitchen, move a bedroom, call a bedroom a den. You can say you got a different floor plan, but what really was trying to be accomplished with the way the original language was written was to ensure that the exterior of the properties had variation as you went down the street. And if we just focus on the floor plan, we may not influence a change in the exterior of the property. So I'm concerned about striking everything that was in this original language and just, around elevations and focusing on the floor plan variation. Does my concern make sense?
It does. And why we were using the language is because of massing. When you start to change the floor plan, you add additional massing to the house substantially changes in its appearance from an elevation perspective. And so the goal wasn't necessarily to bring an emphasis on floor planning, but as much to affect the actual elevation, because we recognize that as we added on bedrooms, or we added even a fifth bedroom up top, and what that did with the overall massing of the house, it would completely change the elevation itself.
But is it wrong to assume that somebody could say, hey, yeah, I got variation in my floor plan because what this house right here has this labeled as a bedroom and I'm calling it as a den? I mean, to me, somebody could simply submit that and it would be a variation in floor plan. How can we write this so that, or how could this be written so that we can ensure that there's variation on the exterior facade of the house, or the variation in the depth of the face of the house?
I would like to suggest, because the intent here was massing, that we use the verbiage of massing of the house. That is something that we do in Westlake and Southlake and various other municipalities that we build in, because the overall, when you start to substantially change the massing of the house, it completely changes elevation. So that maybe we utilize language that says that the massing will be different than follow out with the rest of the statement of the six.
So
That's just a suggestion.
Could we couple massing and floor plan and cover
I think that's fine, because both of those are synonymous.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that, because we certainly have always tried to make sure that we don't have the same exact house built every other house, or every couple of houses as you look down our streets in Haslet.
Agreed, and that's our intent as well.
Okay.
We don't want that either.
Hey, Chairman?
Yes.
This is more schwanky. When you look at item number 2, it actually addresses both of those. It says not only the elevation, but it says floor plan and elevation. So it's addressing both of those under number 2. So in other words, the 6 elevations across the street have to be different, as well as the floor plans, not just one or the other.
And that was the intent.
Yeah. So, there was a kind of I guess a softer use of difference by saying shall not be similar at the end of the original text. And now it says shall not have the same floor plan and elevation. So maybe we just change that last sentence to say same floor plan, elevation, and massing. You just add the word massing into that final sentence, and I think that probably would address my concern if the applicant is so inclined to agree with that.
The only thing that I would be careful of is that in some of the floor planning itself, we have drawn up various elevations that are completely substantially different, meaning roof lines, texturing on the outside of the house, and what have you. So if they did do a similar floor plan, but yet the elevation and the massing was different, is that an issue? You would not be able to tell a distinctive difference between the homes themselves just because of the distinctive differences of the massing and the elevation.
If it had to be all three, though, that would you could prevent that from happening, though, couldn't you? scale, you couldn't just scale up in a floor plan or scale it down and build it, because it would be, because you would have the same elevations and you would have the same essential floor plan, even though it may be smaller in scale.
Yeah, I think that you're correct in that. I'm trying to process, we have several different floor plans for people to pick from, and the elevations are substantially different. If they decided to add a bedroom onto the floor plan, I mean, that substantially changes things. I think that language works on it. Our goal is not to be blunt, our goal is not to have a copycat where every, other home you see is the same. That's just not what we're going to do. It's just not what we're going to do. But I think I agree with you on the language.
Okay, and then my third concern is just the use of EFS. I don't believe, or I'm not aware of anything where we've permitted that. And so I would be concerned about that.
We're not using EFS. EFS is being discarded.
So that is
We do not
to include EFS, correct?
Correct. We do not use EFS.
Okay.
Ours is a 3-coat bonded stucco system.
I don't have any other questions. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, is there a motion?
The cement board or the cementation board, is that what's on the exterior of your one, I guess it's the lighthouse on the right as you come in?
Yes, sir, it is. It's a cementous hardy siding. So it is cement, a fibrous cement that's on the outside of the house. And it's an architectural standard that that a lot of folks are really, really drawn to. If you go to my website, Pentavia Custom Homes, you can start to see various farmhouse, Napa farmhouses, things that we've done. That's kind of our intent there.
Yeah, I think that's a new look for a Haslet here. I don't think any of the other developments have that. And you say it'll only be used with a mix of stone and brick, but there's no ratio of that. I mean,
correct. Our goal is to bring in the use of stone and brick along with that. It will be a full masonry, if you will, with cementous siding, but we carry water tables around the structure itself that's brick or stone. We have main elements of the house that's all stone. It's an accent to the house itself.
all right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments for the city staff or the applicant?
Just out of curiosity, what is the EIF?
EFS was a system that was used to basically formed foam boards that people were stuccoing over the top of it. And the problem with EFS was the ability to handle moisture. We do not use EFS. That's an outdated old way of building within the International Build Code. And it's just, quite frankly, not to the quality of what we would do.
Any other questions? Is there a motion? Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we recommend changes in the planned development residential to planned development residential with modifications with the changes as reflected in the city staff letter, and I'm going to make some amendments to what they have said. So in item 1, as it reads, masonry shall be defined as included hard coat stucco, brick, stone, cementation board, or siding, as long as the cementation board siding is mixed with brick and or stone. Masonry is not defined to be EPIS, so no changes to that link. Point 2 says, furthermore, the building elevation of the 6 houses directly across the street from the proposed lot and the adjacent lots on either side of the residence shall not have the same floor plan, massing, and elevation as the proposed residence. So that is a change to the original request. Item 3 was for the roof pitch, and we haven't made any modifications to that. Item 4 was on the garages. It says a minimum of 3 enclosed garage spaces are required per residence. The primary garage shall be side entry and be a 2-bay garage. And then on the other remaining text would be secondary garages may be 1 side entry or 2 front entry if the garage is located at least 15 feet behind the frontmost forward plane of the elevation. So it reads, let me strike that and restate this. A minimum of 3 enclosed garage spaces are required per residence. The primary garage residence shall be side entry and be a 2-bay garage. A single entry garage bay is permitted to face the forward facade of the elevation, but must be 15 feet behind the forward-most front plane of the elevation. Correct. Yeah, I got rid of that.
So that you're limited.
That's correct. Yes.
I'll second.
Greg, wait just a second. Greg, could I add a bit to that last thing you said? I would like to add that the garage door that faces the street cannot be larger than 72 square feet.
That's not the motion I made. I just said it couldn't be it had to be a single bay garage.
I know, but I would like to add that to it. Or can you add that to it?
Yes, I'll amend my motion to reflect that the garage door can't be any, let's state it in width. Can't be more than an 8-foot garage door.
Well, I would do it. That would work out to a 9 wide by 8 tall.
Okay, then I'll amend it to 9 feet wide. By
Yeah.
8 feet tall. The motion was amended. Is there a second on the amended motion?
I will second the amended motion.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, the 3 members present were in favor. Mr. Markison
Yes.
and Mr. Hilborn.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Moving on, agenda item 4D, hold a public hearing, discuss, consider an act regarding a request on a zoning change from R2 to NC pursuant to sections 2.5.1 of chapter 14 of the zoning ordinance on track 243 MEP and PRR County Survey, section 1130 within the city of Haslet, Texas, more commonly known as 1901 State Highway 156. And we begin with our staff presentation.
Thank you. This is Morris Schwanke, Chairman and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. This is a request of 3.5 acres located at the northeast corner of FM 156 and Blue Mound Road. The request is to change the property zoning from R2 to NC neighborhood commercial. All of the property surrounding this intersection is currently all R2 zoning. The comprehensive plan that was done several years back recommends this area to continue as residential. And if you look at the comprehensive plan, all the commercial zoning that's being proposed is along I-35 or to the north 1/3 of the city, while retaining this area and most of the bulk of the interior of the city as residential in nature. The concept plan that was submitted has some 16,295 square foot of space, of which gas pumps are shown on the very south side of it on Blue Mound Road. And if you start looking at the vehicle trips that currently exist on the FM 156, and I got these numbers from the text dot, they are very high for roads that are and not their ultimate build out. When you start adding more cars per day, especially from the gas pumps, it significantly raises the amount of vehicle trips. And when if this is approved, the gas pumps are not automatic. In the NC, if you want gas pumps or a gasoline service station, you have to actually request a specific use permit. Even though it shows on a concept plan, that's not part of the request tonight, but that's probably their ultimate request, is to have those gas pumps out there in the front. After looking at what the comprehensive plan shows and what the existing zoning is in the neighborhood, the staff is not in support of this request. And I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant present this evening? Would you like to add any comments at this time?
No, sir.
There it is. Yes, my name is Steve Holmeyer. I'm with Holmeyer Engineering. We're the civil engineer on this particular project. When we approached this site, we were aware of the fact that it was zoned for residential and the land use was residential, but we also looked at the traffic that has been generated in that general vicinity. There's approximately 15,000 cars today going up and down FM 156. And so we were looking at that, and we were trying to see how that would all fit together. And if you look at just the extrapolation of the numbers that we've seen for the last 4 or 5 years, it's been about 800 cars per day increase at this particular location. And so if you extrapolate that out for the next 5 years, we're looking at about 19,000 cars generally in this area, and that doesn't have anything to do with the retail. And so Mr. Schwenke is correct in stating that a development of this would create about 5,000 vehicles per day or trips per day. But it's not our intent or our thought in this that this would be cars coming from other portions of the city to this particular location. We're trying to capture that 15,000 to 19,000 cars that'll be in this particular location, and to provide a convenience to the neighborhoods, because as this area continues to develop, there's going to be more and more houses, and we feel that a retail component of this nature would be of a benefit to those residences. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank
you. Okay, at this time, we'll open the public hearing, and we'll invite anyone wishing to speak for or against agenda item 4D to speak. There is a long list of people who have expressed an interest in doing so. So we ask that you keep your comments to no more than 2 minutes. We will take care of the comments from those individuals who are in the room first, and then if there's individuals outside of the room, we will invite them in as we allow those who have spoken in the room to exit, because we can't exceed the capacity constraints for the room. And then from there, we'll take those individuals who have joined by teleconference, and we'll allow you your opportunity to speak as well. So we'll begin with those individuals in the room. Sir?
Yes, my name is Patrick Kennedy. I'm a property owner on 1501 FM 156 South and 1411 FM 156. Both my properties are frontage road to 156. I'm here to vote in favor of the proposed change because with the changes coming in on 156, I do plan in the future to turn my properties over commercial too. I've spoken to other neighbors on 156 that are in favor of doing the same thing also. We are with the increase in traffic and the lanes that are fixing to come right at my front door. I don't see how the city or even the state could ask us not to flip those properties over commercial because we're going to have so much traffic right in our front yard. I am fixing to lose about 25 feet of frontage road that the state owns, and it's going to be developed into roadways there. So I'm here to vote in favor of the change.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak for or against? Yes, ma'am.
Did I not turn it on? I'm so sorry. I almost got a head-on collision there with somebody not paying attention and coming northbound on 156. All of a sudden, there were all these trucks and everybody stopped and they came across and head-on into me and got onto the grass over by Ashmore before hitting me. But that intersection is dangerous. We do not need another gas station or even commercial right there. Haslet Parkway is coming. The reason that the former economic developer told me they wanted that particular position or route for Haslet Parkway was to have a four-corner intersection that they can develop. There is not one housing development that's going to have houses near Haslet Parkway. Sweetgrass is going to have an entrance, but as you all remember, their drawing was a big, long entry into where the houses are because that part near Haslet Parkway is going to be commercial. So if we want to put commercial, we need to put commercial on Haslet Parkway. That's why it's there. You're coming into town, you see all these houses, and then you're going to see a bunch of businesses. We have no control over their maintenance. How are they going to start to be run down? Are they going to go out of business? Are they going to be boarded up? What is going to happen to that? It's going to be, shady looking to say the least. There's a possibility. Not that they would, but there's that possibility. Also, right now, Haslet has what, 2,000, 2,500 people in it? We've got 3 gas stations within the city limits, plus 3 right outside the city limits, 156 and 287. Okay. I did send a letter. I would like it to be read into the record so that all of my comments are in here. But Haslet Parkway should be commercial. 156 needs to say residential.
Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak for or against agenda item 4D?
This is Mayor Halsey. I was speaking last time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Halsey. So I've got a list of individuals here, and I'll call on you by name, and if you still wish to speak, please feel free to do so at this time. If you don't, please just say no further no comment, and then we'll go to the next individual. So, Wirtz, Kitty or John Wirtz?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I am against changing the zoning from residential to commercial. As a concerned citizen of Haslet, I'd like it to be known that I'm not in favor of this zoning change from residential to commercial for the northeast corner lot of FM 156 and Blue Mound Road. As I understand, the owner is intending on putting a gas station there. This is clearly a residential area with a house behind it, a house across from Blue Mound from it, and a subdivision across from 156 from it. This is clearly not a good location for a gas station and would create an unsafe area for gas pumps and tanks being so close to existing homes. This area should stay residential as all the current surrounding areas are currently. The added traffic, noise, and lights are out of place and not fair to the homeowners who are close by this area, and not fair to the rest of the citizens in Haslet. A commercial economic development should be placed closer to I-35, where the traffic will be combined in an area that is not residential, not entering into the middle of Haslet. I don't want people driving into Haslet to see a stretch of commercial areas when we are a residential community. This is how the area is currently zoned and should stay that way. We need to keep Haslet as a very high-end neighborhood that it has grown into, and not drag it down to a commonplace community with poor planned development.
Okay,
A
ma'am.
commercial change is not what is
Ma'am.
currently zoned,
Ma'am,
and
you're
is
at
not
time.
what the Haslet
Can
citizens.
you mute? Ma'am, you are at time, so we do need to respect the 2 minutes. We have a number of people who would like to speak tonight. We need to respect the 2 minutes. Next speaker, Andrew Campbell. You wish to speak this evening? Okay, so would, Mr. Tucker, would you like me to read these comments if they're not present? Okay, so being that Mr. Campbell isn't present, he did submit a comment. He said, "My name is Andrew Campbell. I am the property owner in Ashmore Farms. I'm writing to request that the board reject the request to change the zoning for the area in question. We moved to the neighborhood, in particular to this area of Haslet, because it was zoned for residential growth and not commercial use. Additionally, we have a gas station less than a half mile from our house and see no need for additional commercial property bordering our neighborhood. I ask that the board members kindly reject this proposal and maintain the current zoning." Next speaker is Mark and/or Betsy Osborne.
He's the neighbor too.
And again, is Osborne in attendance this evening? Mark or Betsy Osborne? Okay, the chat field's not working, we realize, so you're not able to put your name in, so that's why I'm calling individuals by name. Osborne submitted a comment, says, please distribute this email to the zoning board. My wife and I strongly oppose a gas station or any commercial business going in at this location. Please keep commercial activities to the new Haslet Parkway as proposed several years ago. Next speaker, Michelle Mays, or Corey Mays. You present this evening? Michelle Mays also submitted a comment, says, "I am a resident of Haslet. I am not in favor of adding a gas station at 156 in Blue Mound. Haslet has already lost so much of its small town country feel, which is what attracted us to Haslet. Disappointing. Please forward to the planning and zoning members." Moving on is Lindsay Williams present this evening and wishing to speak. Ms. Williams? I'm not finding a comment from Ms. Williams. I didn't miss one. Okay, moving on. Rick Kettering. Mr. Kettering present? Okay, Mr. Kettering's not present. Mr. Fielder. Ms. Jackson. Ms. Jackson, are you present this evening and wishing to speak? Eric Musquiz. Rachel Sackett. Terry Borman. Carrie Ferber. Tony Marlowe. Roger Smeltzer. Michelle Wilkinsgard. Okay, if I've called your name and you want to speak, make sure you let me know. That's why I'm calling your names. Kathy Brandon. The Burnett family. Ms. Halsey. Is there anyone on the teleconference that does wish to speak? And I'm gonna, when you take your phone off of mute, I will call on you by your initials. And if I don't call your initials, please go ahead and mute yourself. So, TP.
Okay, hello, this is the Plaisance. We're at Plaisance family, we're at 224. Strongly opposed to the proposition for a gas station corner of 156 and Blue Mound. This is a residential area that will not benefit any residents of Haslet, in my opinion, only traffic through the area. Value residential homes. Opposed to this proposition, rezone the property in question at the northeast corner of 156 and Blue Mound Road. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Is anyone else wishing to speak for or against? S. And that is Stephanie.
This is Stephanie speaking at 1406 Poppy Drive. My husband and I both oppose the change in zoning. We feel like we have enough gas stations within reach, and we would like to maintain the Haslet residential feel, not add commercial. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against? If so, take yourself off of mute and I will be able to recognize you. MH.
Hi, my name is Michonne Holt, and I live at 104 Briarwood Lane, which is directly across. If you look at the plan, my house backs straight across from the proposed entrance to this gas station. Now, my opposition is because, number one, there is a convenience store in a residential area is a bad idea. We have the Haslet Parkway coming along. That is a great place for traffic. Right now, currently, we can't even get out of our neighborhood at certain peak traffic times. Number two, and this is actually, there are statistics to prove this, that this will increase not just light pollution and noise pollution, but crime. It will also, who is going to make up for the property value lost from our homes being right across from a convenience store? As Kurt Du Bois said, you know, the Vines, they're trying to do a very high standard for a beautiful community, which Haslet is. However, this is not something that is going to even raise the standards. It's going to lower the standards. It's going to raise crime, raise noise pollution, and basically it's going to drive people away from Haslet. I strongly oppose this convenience store idea. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else wishing to speak for or against? If so, please take yourself off mute so you can be recognized. Okay, that is all the comments from those individuals who are participating by teleconference. There are a number of submitted comments that I would like to read, and then Mr. Halsey, I'll call on you. You wanted to go last, so I will do that at that time. So this is from Ms. White. It has been brought to my attention that there has been a request filed to rezone the corner of Blue Mound 150 and 156 from residential to commercial. My wife and I live near the intersection, are against it being zoned commercial. White family. Miss Jackson wrote, I wish to request that the northeast corner northeast corner lot at FM 156 in Blue Mound stay residential. I understand there will be a discussion around this at the zoning, zoning the land commercial. As a resident that lives in Haslet Park, I personally don't want the added traffic noise and lights. Keep my Haslet country. We have enough gas station stores for our small town, but way too many people. Please think of this, and for people visiting Haslet, let's give them a beautiful fields to see out their windows. This is from Bob was present. Mr. Musquiz, who I called in earlier, he said, my name is Eric Musquiz, and I reside at 108 Schreiber in Haslet Park. I want to address my concern on item 4D on tomorrow's agenda about the zoning request to change from residential to commercial at 156 in Blue Mound. This is clearly a residential area. Highway FM 156 cannot handle any more traffic than there already is. I am all for growth, but where it is reasonable and viable, the area does not fit that model. If you live anywhere near this highway and intersection, you know how bad the traffic is. It takes 10 to 15 minutes to travel 3 miles from the bridge to Highway 287, and it's heavily congested with oversized commercial trucks, and adding a gas station will only make it worse. Please consider against approving the zoning request. And this is from Ms. Sackett. I'm a resident of Haslet and have been for over 20 years. The change that has happened to the city is something I've never thought to see. Not being able to leave my Haslet Park neighborhood from 3 to 7 due to the overwhelming traffic that takes place every day on FM 156 is terrible. I've witnessed multiple accidents with many ending in fatalities. Still no change to the infrastructure, only adding more additions causes more traffic. With that being said, we as a family on Berry Street are strongly against rezoning of the property to be discussed on agenda item 4D. Official comments we've already read in. Ms. Rice says I'm sorry, that was Ms. Rice. I almost read your comment back to the individual. The comment from Mr. Marlowe: the corner is bad enough as it is, but a gas station would be the worst thing anyone could put there. It needs to stay housing as it is now. Vote no. Mr. Smeltzer, I think we've got your comments. Mr. Smeltzer, did we have comments from you? Maybe not. I'll read it. Said, I know there's a ton of NIMBYs not in my backyard, folks, in Haslet, but any commercial development along 156, and especially on any hard corner, is needed in Haslet. We strongly favor commercial rezoning for the properties along 156. What most folks don't realize is that commercial development won't just mean a gas station to complain about. It will lead to more services like doctors' offices, specialists, service providers, restaurants, buildings for citizens to open their local business rather than drive to Fort Worth, South Lake, and eventually grocery stores, so that all Haslet citizens' tax revenues continue to spend in Fort Worth. Please don't be short-sighted of Haslet's long-term growth, and please strongly consider all hard corners in the city to be commercial like in other developed communities in the Metroplex. And remember, no one ever loves living on a singleized intersection or one of those ridiculous roundabouts, so the land's highest and best use can only be commercial. And just for the record, he is a real estate developer. This is from Michelle Lokinsgard. I would like to make it known that I am not in favor of changing the land on the northeast corner of FM 156 in Blue Mound from residential to commercial. I would like to see the retail stay off FM 156. Haslet Parkway should be a good spot for a gas. Haslet Parkway would be a good spot for a gas station. And this is from Kathy, and I don't have Kathy. I'm Kathy Brandon at 213 Bain. I am speaking against agenda item 4D and opposing the rezoning. I've witnessed our little town explode over the past 35 years. Some of the neighborhood standards have been allowed to change, but our neighborhoods have remained residential neighborhoods. This property is across from residential and next to residential. Please leave it zoned as a residential property. In the future, there will be Four Corners intersection at Haslet Parkway for economic development, plus the northern part of Haslet is commercial as well as industrial. This is and will be sufficient tax base. I hope that you consider rezoning would impact our neighborhood as well as traffic. I don't want a gas station in front of or next to my house, and I hope you wouldn't want either. Commercial use should be permitted and should not be permitted in our neighborhoods. As a citizen of Haslet, I ask that you deny this request. Next comment comes from the Burnett family. We have just found out that there is a request for zoning change to allow a gas station on FM 156 in Blue Mound. We oppose the change. Please keep this as residential. It has already become so difficult to get around Haslet due to the development that has taken place. This kind of development really just brings in more crime, traffic, noise, and light pollution. The whole reason we moved out to Haslet was to get away from that kind of development that Keller and Fort Worth were doing. They were spreading like a cancer, and Haslet was a standalone city that was upholding its core values as being a quality place for people to live. I ask that you please forward this to all Planning and Zoning Commission members. Next comment came from Ms. Holsey, who I called on but didn't speak. Please include this correspondence to read in the public hearing section of item 4D of tonight's P&Z meeting, September 28th. I'm writing to oppose item 4D on the P&Z agenda. Proposed to change the zoning on the northeast corner of FM 156 in Blue Mound from residential R2 to NC neighborhood commercial. I agree with the city staff or the Haslet staff in the executive summary that since this request is not in keeping with the surrounding zoning and not keeping with the comprehensive plan, it should be denied. We do not want commercial sites in the middle of residential areas. It is zoned residential for a reason and should stay zoned residential. There is no reason to change our zoning for an out-of-towner commercial developer. And that was the last of the submitted comments that we were to read into the minutes for this evening. And now we have one final speaker, Mr. Halsey. Do you wish to come forward still?
Thank you, Chairman Kadesh and Commissioners. And I am the mayor of Haslet, Texas, voicing my opinion, but I also carry the voice of many residents in Haslet, Texas. All I can say is God bless Haslet and its citizens. They are involved and they love their town. I think, by virtue of the fact your present zoning map has that zoned as medium or R2, medium density residential, and your future land use plan over there also says medium density residential. That is the value of Haslet, that we don't have all that commercial lining our streets. I would like to also say that a prominent developer was very concerned about this, and it is not at all conducive to what's going on in Haslet, Texas. That's our value. Our value is homes and families protected. We oppose it. Citizens oppose it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Halsey. All right, at this time, we'll close the public hearing and we'll move to discussion. Are there any questions for the city staff or the applicant? If there are no questions, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. This is Paul Wallach. I'll make a motion regarding the request on a zoning change from R2 to NC pursuant to section 2.5.1 of chapter 14 of the zoning ordinance on a tract 243 MEP and RPRR CO survey, section 1130 within the city, Texas, more commonly known as 1901 South State Highway 156, that we deny this request or recommend denying this request. Recommend the city council to deny
This is Jim. I'll second it.
Mr. Marcuson, are you in favor of the motion?
I'm in favor.
And Mr. Hilborn, are you in favor of the motion?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Moving on, agenda item 4E, hold a public hearing, discuss, consider an act regarding approval of ordinance 014-2021, amending section 10.03.040, subsection F of article 10.3, impact fees of the city of Haslet code relating to the fire flow meter requirement in the city's extraterritorial jurisdiction. And we'll begin with our staff presentation. Is there anybody from the city staff that's planning to present on agenda item 4E? Mr. Thetford?
Yes, this is Jim.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim. I'm sorry.
Jim Quinn. Yes, what this is establishes an impact fee for those landowners in the ETJ who request a fire flow meter. They have to request one. Presently, if you're within the city of Haslet, you do not have to pay such an impact fee. However, if you're in ETJ, you are not contributing to the welfare and financial status of the city. So therefore, if an ETJ developer requests a fire flow meter, this establishes an impact fee. We don't necessarily, if they don't request one, then the impact fee is not there. So what this does is Alamo Fireworks came into the city. They were able to get a fire flow meter without an impact fee. That was an error. And what we're doing is correcting that. So anybody else that comes in ETJ that requests a fire flow meter will have to pay an impact fee. Some of them are several $100,000. So this is what this does. This establishes an impact fee for those properties in ETJ who request a fire flow meter. Therefore, they're going to have to pay this impact fee because it affects the city's infrastructure, ability to provide water, and also the employees who put in the fire flow meter, et cetera.
Okay, anything additional you would like to add at this time?
No, sir, that kind of sums up the order.
Okay, we'll move to our public hearing. And is there anyone wishing to speak for or against agenda item 4E? And if you are joined by teleconference, if you would like to speak, please take yourself off mute and we'll recognize you. Okay, recognizing no one stepped forward in the room, nor did anybody identify themselves as wishing to speak by teleconference, we're going to close the public hearing and we'll move on to discussion. Is there any questions for the city staff? Or, yeah, any questions for any city staff representation? I have one question, and that is, has the fee table been updated to reflect this?
Yes, it has been updated. That's the whole issue is for us to establish an impact fee. The Planning and Zoning Commission must hear the item and recommend approval if so inclined. And then when it goes to the City Council, there'll be an amended fee schedule that include those charges.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we recommend to City Council the approval of the fire flow meter requirements as stated in agenda item number 4E.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
I'll second. This is Dennis.
The motion has been seconded in the room by Mr. Wallach. Do a vote, all in favor? 3 members in attendance and are all in favor. We'll do the remainders by roll call. Mr. Hilborn?
Yes.
And Mr. Markison?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Moving on, agenda item 4F, discussion, consider an action regarding recommendation of ordinance of the City of Haslet, Texas, amending Article 5, Design and Development Standards of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance by adding a new section 5.10 exterior site lighting and amending table 5.1-1, design and development standards applicability matrix to add exterior site lighting. And this is referenced in SR-21.441, which is a PDF document. Okay, so we will begin. Is there a staff presentation on this one?
I can address it. When the comprehensive zoning ordinance was amended, the lighting standards were omitted from the document. I believe the last meeting it was desired by the Planning and Zoning Commission for the city attorney to write an ordinance reestablishing the lighting standards, I believe in all districts, and he has written such an ordinance. Also, I think there was some discussion about when should the Planning and Zoning Commission consider the lighting standards in a preliminary plat or a concept plan or final plat. That's to be determined. But what this is doing is reestablishing the lighting standards in the zoning districts that were there previously and that were omitted, I sincerely believe, by accident. But that's what we're doing right here, and I think the city attorney's prepared an ordinance establishing that. So there you have it, and that's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Quinn. At this time, we'll open the public hearing, and is there anyone wishing to speak for or against agenda item 4F? Not listed as a public hearing, but it's considered an action. So if we're going to have action, I would assume we need to offer or provide an opportunity for public comment. So if you want to have any comment you would like to make for or against, go ahead and take yourself off mute and I can recognize you. Nobody took the opportunity to speak during the public hearing. We'll close the public hearing. We'll move it to discussion. Is there any questions for the city staff or myself for that matter, since I was the one who put this on the agenda last time and made the request that we have a discussion on this? Mr. Quinn, I do have one question. So the timing of when this would be, when these standards would be shown to be met during the preliminary plat, final plat, or some other appropriate time, is it likely that we'll see an additional agenda item appear next month to address the timing of when that, or what that instrument would be to convey that they've met the standards in Article 5?
Yes, sir. There will be an item on the next agenda regarding whether the P&Z gets to see it in a preliminary plat and then make their recommendations from that. Certainly, I would think the preliminary plat would be the appropriate place, because once you get the final plat, it's pretty much done. So I would say preliminary plat, and the earlier the better. So we'll put an item on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion before we have a motion? If we have a motion. Okay, is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the city council the approval of the zoning exterior site lighting as stated in agenda item number 4F.
Okay, there's a motion to recommend approval of the changes to the development standards as outlined in agenda item 4F. Is there a second? Is there a second?
This is Dennis. I'll
Okay, it's been seconded by Mr. Hilborn. All in favor? All the members present in the room are in favor. Do a roll call for those by teleconference. Mr. Markison?
Yes.
And Mr. Hilborn?
yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Agenda item 5 we didn't need. Agenda item 6 we don't need. Status of the current development projects. We don't have a report this month, so we don't need to go in any lengthy discussion on that. How full does our agenda look for the next meeting, the October meeting at this time?
It does not look that extensive. We did all the heavy work this evening regarding the developments.
Okay. And I don't believe there's any needed changes to the remaining calendar for the balance of the year, but we do have the CIAC plan meeting coming up in November, if I recall. Is that still correct, Ms. Rice?
Yes, yes, the CIC will be presented to the in the November meeting.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be at the in November meeting. There'll be a separate CIAC meeting that will precede the regular Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Okay.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
We are adjourned. The time is 8:10 p.m.
This conference is no longer being recorded.